Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back here to Tansson Talks TV.
I was glad to have you guys back again.
Yeah, and so first of all, Mom, how are you doing here today?
I am doing fine. Thank you so much for asking, Brandon.
Cool. And like I said, I'm very excited for us to get into today's discussion. And Mom, what are we speaking about today?
Today we're going to talk about Reba.
I'm so excited for us to get into this, and we will be speaking about the first episode, the pilot episode of this series, and it is produced by Acme Productions and 20th Century Fox Television.
Oh, sounds excellent.
Yeah, so Mom, if you can do us the honors and go ahead and present us with this week's findings.
All right. And Brandon, I'm going to do like I did last week. I am going back to my top 10. I won't number them this time, but I promise y'all, there are 10 of them. All right. But I will say for the first. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about the episode itself. So, to the audience first, the family is introduced in a family therapy session. We are introduced to Brock and Reba, who are a separated couple, and they have three children. They have Cheyenne, who is 17 and a senior in high school. They have Kyra, who is a preteen. Kira, sorry, and then they have Jake, who is the youngest child. Um, Reba wants the family to get back together. In the therapy session, Brock announces he needs to marry Barbara Jean, who is his dental hygienist girlfriend. Number five, it is discovered that Barbara Jean is pregnant. And then Jake, the son, says that his sister Cheyenne is pregnant. Number six, later on at Reba's house, we find out that Van, who is Cheyenne's boyfriend, has not told his family about the pregnancy. And then number seven, Van's parents kick him out of the house later after he tells his parents about Cheyenne. Um, Cheyenne and Van do get married at the end of the episode. Number nine, Barbara Jean, who is, of course, the girlfriend of Brock, does attend the wedding and wants to be a part of everyone's life. And then number 10, Reba admits in a very dramatic moment that she still wants the family to be together. And so that is the first episode and number 10 from 1 through 10, Brandon.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for the top 10 list synopsis.
You are welcome.
Yeah, and so I feel like there's so much that you can take out of this first episode of Reba. And yeah, and I guess before we get further, how much of the series do you know about?
Well, I know quite a bit about the series, Brand, because I do watch Reba. I still watch Reba. It comes on in the middle of the night, and when I can't sleep, I watch it. And then sometimes it's on first thing in the morning, and I'll watch it in the morning. So I do know quite a bit about Reba. I think when it originally came on, I watched it nonstop, and then somewhere down the middle, I kind of stopped a little bit. But over the course of the years, I have seen the whole series.
Yeah, and I will say that I've seen probably at least a good majority of it. Maybe not every episode to the detail, but I've definitely seen my fair share of Reba. And I will say that I probably have memorized the first 6 minutes of this episode.
Yes, and to be honest, he is telling the truth there. When we watched it again, Brandon knew a lot of the lines.
Yeah, but and even though I know how the episode ended, I don't really remember a lot of the middle details, and I'm not sure if if it's just because I haven't seen a lot of the middle of the episode, or if it's because some of it is normally cut down on TV. I'm not completely sure, but nevertheless, I feel like the first few minutes are definitely highly memorable.
They are. It is highly memorable, and I will say, and I didn't talk about it, but Nell Carter was the guest star for this, and so it was nice to see her on this series. I do remember her being, of course, in that first episode, but she did a really great job, kind of moderating, being the therapist.
Yeah, and so especially with her being introduced as the court appointed therapist, and they even make a note of the family noting to her that they are not crazy, and she's like, "That's all they ever assigned me, not crazy people."
Yes, yes, it was funny.
Yeah, and I feel like the dynamics were really were really helped out with that, and like I said, I think Nell Carter's addition here as I said the therapist, Dr. Peters, I think is just like a great warm welcome to the series and helps you get an understanding of everyone's who everyone is, their dynamics, and a tiny bit of their personality.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job for the premiere episode to be able to introduce all the characters and basically to do it in a straightforward manner because she was a therapist and they all had to explain who they were, what they were, and what were the issues or what was going well or right in that particular session. So they did a nice job of introducing all the characters very quickly, but yet you get a little bit of depth at the same time.
Yeah. And I feel like, throughout the course of this episode, even though, of course, it centers primarily on, the character of Reba, her daughter Cheyenne, her boy, her daughter's boyfriend turned fiance by the end of the episode, Van, and
Hmm.
of course, Reba's husband, soon to be ex-husband,
Yeah.
um, and his girlfriend. I feel like the people that you don't get full center stage of are Reba's two youngest children, Kira and of course Jake.
Yes, I think they're explored, especially Kira. She's explored in great depth in later episodes. And I think, Brandon, you had some comments that you told me you wanted to make about Kira.
Yeah, and I will say that from observing through this episode,
Hmm.
that you can tell that Kira's a bit frustrated having to sort of take on the slack of now the dad Brock being gone, and especially now with uh, Cheyenne being sort of the center of attention now, where Kira's sort of being shown to sort of like have to grow up a little quicker because
Hmm.
you can tell in here that she's definitely on the younger side of things, but yet
Hmm.
at the same time, like you can see a couple times through this episode where Reba's telling her that she needs to help out with this or help out with that, and she's like, "Well, why do I have to do this?"
Yeah, yep. And then Jake, although I don't think the depth of his character is really explored in the series, but they do explore him toward the end. I want to say, the last two seasons, he has more of a role in the show.
Yeah, and I guess for a question for you, Mom. So, yeah, we mentioned before that in the very introductory scenes that we're introduced to the main cast, through the therapist. However, the only person that we're not introduced to at the time directly is Brock's new girlfriend, Barbara Jean. And so,
Yeah.
what do you think of her introduction?
Barbara Jean's just an interesting person. She really is. I mean, you, even though she is the girlfriend of someone you should not like, you like Barbara Jean. They do a good job of just kind of introducing her, making her a little bit of the goofy girlfriend, but at the same time, she brings the comedic side of the relationship. And it's interesting how she just wants to be part of their family.
Yeah, I think you can definitely tell that throughout the series and especially in this episode,
Hmm.
and especially where there's a whole point in this episode where Brock is like, I'm not showing up to my daughter's wedding, I don't think this is a good idea, even though you can tell that he has like a fatherly bond with Van, being
Uh,
that Van's a football player and Brock is the assistant coach. But
yeah.
when he does show up, he brings Barbara Jean, and Reba's like, I only told you to bring the ice, not her.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other character that Brandon that I think wasn't explored initially, at least within the group session, is I don't think Van was there. And so, Van itself being the other outlier character, with everyone coming together, it was good to see him there, and I think it's interesting to watch Van as he grew throughout the series also.
Yeah, and I will say that within this episode, there were just two minor things that, from having seen some of the rest of the series,
Hmm.
that struck me as a little peculiar, I
Okay.
suppose, from this episode. And that is, I feel like the way that Reba reacted when in one of the scenes where everyone was fighting right before the wedding,
Hmm.
she sort of just broke down for a moment and she said to Brock, "We were supposed to grow old together," and then
Hmm.
abruptly leaves the room. Whereas I feel like in subsequent episodes that Reba has a little bit more punch to her speaking, and definitely a quick comeback. And
Mhm.
so I think just the delivery of the way it is definitely is, a tad different. But
Mhm.
I feel like that's sort of the same across all pilot episodes because you haven't really explored the characters yet.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to explore everything, especially for Cheyenne to get married that quickly in the one episode. You're introduced, Van is there, and all of a sudden they're married all within 22 minutes. Um, so, um, so yeah, for Reba to have that dramatic scene like that, which you're right, in other episodes she might have a dramatic scene, but it's done a little differently than this particular episode.
Yeah, and I will say the only other thing is probably just the way that Van was described in this episode is just slightly different, than in later episodes. But I don't think that one's as noticeable.
Hmm. Yep, that's true too. I would say, and based upon the first episode, what storyline, because there are quite a few of them there, Brandon, do you think you would have wanted to explore just based upon this episode alone?
Probably the dynamic between Cheyenne and Reba prior to this, because it seems like they have somehow gotten closer, like within this episode. So I kind of want to see how it was beforehand, and then I guess too maybe a little bit as to what Reba thought of Barbara Jean, because it's established that they know each other, but they're very antagonistic towards each other. So I
Hmm.
don't know if they had any relations prior to this or if they just heard of each other.
Hmm. For me, it would be kind of like I think Van would be the one for me, because he seems to be like the outlier out there, and it's just interesting to see how he fits into the family, and kind of like what are they going to do to make him work within this family that he's all of a sudden thrown into. And then Barbara Jean, of course, and then because Barbara Jean's just Barbara Jean, and you do kind of want to know what else is going on in Barbara Jean's life.
Yeah, and I think something else that I would kind of want to know is in the beginning of this episode, uh, when they're speaking with the therapist, the therapist was speaking all about their recent court hearing and how they had a giant chaos event, which is the reason for them appointing the therapist because I think they said like, people were yelling and cursing and biting and it was just pure chaos. Is I love like the imagery that they're using with that.
Yes, that would have been a good scene for them to go back on to kind of show that.
Yeah, but in a way, I kind of like that. They're just explaining this, especially at the top of the episode. For
Hmm.
if you would have seen this for the first time, a series that you know nothing about, I think that's just a great hook to sort of reel you in.
Yeah, the imagery's great.
But yeah, and was there anything that I guess you didn't remember about this episode going into it? Because I know while we've seen many of the episodes before, I don't know when the last time was that I may have seen this episode straight through, if even.
The only scene that I didn't remember was Van, well, with Brock not wanting to, not such saying not wanting to attend the wedding, but saying that he would either have to leave early or there or the van couldn't go on his honeymoon because of a game, and so that part I didn't remember, but everything else kind of stood. I did remember.
Yeah, and something else they mentioned in this episode is that Reba really, really wanted Cheyenne to wear her wedding dress, to the
Yeah.
wedding,
Hmm.
and they mentioned that this is something that she always had wanted, but
Hmm.
it was sort of like thrown in there, like in the middle of the episode, just like it was just assumed. So it makes me kind of curious as to prior to that scene whether Reba had spoken with Cheyenne at all, to communicate with that.
Yeah, you're right. It was just a scene just kind of thrown in there. So maybe that was just the extra scene. And I'll have to watch it in reruns to see whether or not, I mean, I know we did watch it in reruns, but on the edited version to see if they kept that part in because I don't remember.
Yeah, and that was something I was saying before too, is that because some of these shows are edited down a little bit for for cable sometimes, and DVDs. I don't know how much do we see in our traditional reruns, but it's nice to at least have seen the original version of it, at least we think.
Yes, yes. We think it's the original version anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, but Mom, is there anything else that you wanted to speak about for this first episode of Reba?
Well, first of all, the theme song. I know you mentioned you had to look it up for me in regards to the theme song because I was disappointed that it was so short because I sing the Reba theme song all the time. And I know you mentioned it was shorter during the first season, if I remember correctly. Is that what you told me?
I think if I remember correctly, it was shorter during the first episode, but then it went longer for the rest of the first season, but then short again for the beginning of the second season, and then long again for the rest of the series, starting somewhere in the second season.
All right. I will say I prefer the long version, and I do like it. I give it a 9.5 because I actually know the words to this song. And um, so yes, it's a nice theme to sing along to, especially if you're laying in your bed and while you're watching the episodes. It's a nice little theme song that I really do like.
Yeah, and it's sung by the titular actor, actress
Uh,
Reba.
yep, it's sung by her. So yeah, it just seemed very appropriate for the show.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. It's a really great theme song, really catchy. And I suppose this was during the time where people were going for more shorter theme songs, and so I guess it maybe didn't know what to do in terms of having long songs, a short song, since it did
Yeah,
all that back and forth for the first two seasons.
I know, and I'm all about a long theme song, so I'm glad they finally decided on that.
Yeah, although I will say that the ones from I think season two onwards, after it got the long one, were certainly my favorite over the season one.
Yes, yes, yes. I prefer those much later in the seasons. Say, and the only other thing, Brandon, I wanted to say is I want to make sure that our audience, let us know if you like Reba, or what other shows you'd like for us to tackle. Please just feel free to put it in the comments below for us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and I'll go a step further. Is if you are a big fan of Reba, let us know in the comments too. What's your favorite episode?
Yeah, yeah. Please let us know.
Yeah, but like I said, this is always so fun to do this, and thank you so much, Mom, for always joining me for these.
Oh, you're welcome, Brandon. I'm glad to work with you.
Yeah, but until next time, everyone, have a wonderful week, and we can't wait to see y'all next week.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.